You're listening to Grown and Growing with Sonia Hamlin. What's up, everybody? Thanks for joining me for another episode. The past 2 weeks have been a little crazy. There's been some ups and some downs, but I'm glad to be back with you for another episode. We talked to Kia Lee about style. That was a really great episode. If you haven't checked it out, please do. And I also dropped an episode called Give Me a Break a few weeks ago that really resonated with some of you. I've gotten a lot of great feedback on that episode. I've gotten some DMs, some texts, some phone calls about how much that episode connected with people. And I love that. That touches me because as much as these episodes are inspired by my life, they're also inspired by women I know. There are friends, I have friends who I love dearly who could benefit from putting themselves first. So these episodes serve as a reminder to me, but also a, message to them that we can do this together. Speaking of which, shout out to my little sister who decided after listening to the episode to use a laundry service. This is huge because my sister is one of the hardest working women I know and deserves more time for herself. She works very long hours. She works on the weekend and she does a lot with her husband and her daughter. And she just, does so much. And she often sacrifice time with herself and doing things for herself to make sure that everyone else is good. So to make this little baby step and take this for her, I'm super proud of her. But let's be clear. The point of that episode was not about how to give up household chores, right? The point of the episode was prioritizing yourself, your needs, and your desires. I want that for my sister. I want that for my friends. I want that for any woman listening to this podcast. If only it were that easy, right? It is exciting and liberating to think about all the ways you could and should prioritize yourself. You think about all the no's you're going to start saying, the dreams that you will pursue, the fun you will have, the travel you will take. It is not about just thinking about it. Right? You have to write them down somewhere. There's something about getting it out of your head and onto a piece of paper that somehow makes it actionable, whether you realize you're taking the steps in that direction or not. There's something about writing it down that makes it feel real. I wish I could say it was as easy as that, right? But it's not. It may require a fight or even cost you a relationship or two. Not everyone is going to cheer you on because your liberation comes at their expense. Or they may cheer you on, but are wondering in the back of their mind how this change is going to affect them. Many people, as well-meaning as they may be, as much as they may love you, benefit from you being overworked, constantly available, and putting their needs ahead of your own. Look, they don't do it on purpose. It is not because they don't love you. It is because they're used to it. If I am going to evolve into this person that I want to be, I need to learn how to deal with the people around me. And we need to determine or figure out how everyone is going to adjust. So when I thought about what keeps me in a vicious cycle of not prioritizing myself, two things rose to the top immediately. As I was preparing for this episode, I was like, okay, why do people go back on or are not consistent with prioritizing themselves over time? Why do they kind of fall off? Came up with 2 points immediately. And then the third one kind of snuck up on me as an aha moment. The 3 things I found that kind of keep people in a harmful cycle are guilt, shame or shaming, and worthiness. What's interesting about guilt, shame, and worthiness is that they all kind of feed into each other like a loop or like they are entangled. I'll start with worthiness because it's probably the most difficult for me to verbalize. It's very personal, whether or not you feel worthy or not. So I'm going to spend the least amount of time talking about it. Worthiness is the idea that you are worthy of peace, love, joy, all the good things in life because you exist. Period. Hard stop. Because you are. You are not worthy because of what you do or what you have accomplished or because of the way you made someone feel. You just are worthy because you are here on this earth. That's some deep stuff. Honestly, do you know that you are worthy deep down inside? And do your actions back that up? I think part of self-sabotaging that we do is a part of not feeling worthy deep down inside. Think about it. Don't tell me. Talk about it with your therapist. This is a perfect topic to talk about with the therapist. Like I said, worthiness is so deeply personal. I think that, and it involves unwinding so much history and so much, so many things that are deep into our lives. I feel like that needs to be talked about with a therapist. So let's move on to guilt. Think about the ultimate guilt trippers in your life. I will give you a few seconds. Your family, your kids. Kids are the ultimate masters of a guilt trip. They know how to do it better than anyone I know. Your boss, your colleagues, your coworkers. They all know how to guilt trip you in a way that like no other. I'm sure we all have them in our lives. They know how to hit you with but you always do this. I can always rely on you. You always whatever it is. And let's be honest, let's call a spade a spade. These people are master manipulators. It sounds harsh, but it's true. No matter how much they love you. Ultimately, if they are trying to get you to do something that you don't want to do or that you shouldn't do, then they are trying to manipulate you. Did you picture yourself? I am a person who will guilt trip myself before anybody else can. I like to beat people to the punch. Before they can place the guilt on you, you're already thinking of all the ways that you should feel guilty for doing this thing. One example where I place guilt on myself is around spending money. In my adult years, or earlier on in my adult years, I made some financial mistakes that made me feel like I was behind and I needed to catch up and rectify all of these financial mistakes that I've made. And so I became very disciplined, very focused on not overspending, telling myself no, being, very responsible, quote unquote, with my money. Now, jump forward to where I am now. I'm not in the same situation. And so when I go to spend money on myself, I feel a ton of guilt. Even though I'm not in that situation anymore, even though I understand money, I know how to use it. And even though, I can afford to do this thing, I still feel guilty. That guilt doesn't happen with my husband or my kids. It's only when I apply it to myself. And I've started to work on that. I actually listen to and follow this financial guru person called Ramit Sethi. And one of his tenets of what he teaches is how to live a rich life. And in a lot of ways, it applies to me, right? I've been spending so many years trying to be disciplined and saving around money that I forget to, or that I haven't enjoyed the life while I'm here. And so he talks a lot about a rich life. But when it comes to guilt, it's almost like we've been programmed to think it is easier to do the thing that they're asking instead of arguing or having them feel bad or mad at you or having them think that you're a mean or not nice person. what I've concluded is that guilt is a lot like fear, right? In a lot of ways, fear can be valid. It can keep you safe. And in the same way, some guilt can be a signal that you've done something wrong, that you've done something against your values, and that you need to rectify. You need to make it right. And so you feel guilt, so you go back so that you can go back and make something right. But guilt in the wrong way can also keep you stuck in harmful cycles. Like all emotions, you may not be able to stop yourself from feeling guilt, but you can control how you respond to it. So before I give into a guilt trip, I think about three things. The first one is what I'm feeling real or true? So does this person have a point or no? This is important for kids because, like I said, kids are the ultimate guilt trippers. They will have you thinking you spend no time with them and that you spend all your time at work, even though you just had a vacation for a week, because that's just how kids are. They don't, see the big picture. And so, it's important to ask yourself, is what this person is saying true? Right? Evaluate that. Is it true? No. And if it's not, then it's okay to present them with facts as to why you can't do what they want you to do, right? Present them with the facts. The second thing is, even if it is true, is it the end of the world? Now, this is probably more appropriate for adults. Even if it is true what they're saying, they're going to be upset. They're going to be mad that you didn't do this thing. They're going to think you're mean. So what? I know that's easier said than done, especially when you're talking to people that you love, but is it the end of the world, right? And if it's not, if you think they're going to get over it, then again, you shouldn't be doing that thing. The third one is, how will I feel later if I give in? Go ahead and do the thing. And then if you do the thing and you get home and you're just like, you feel regret, you feel anger, you feel disappointment, maybe you shouldn't be doing that thing. And that's a lesson for you. That's a trigger that you need to put some things in place to make sure that you don't feel that way again. And so what we're really talking about with guilt is setting and maintaining boundaries. Right. It's just boundaries. I said just boundaries as if it's an easy thing. But it really is about setting up boundaries around yourself. As a recovering people pleaser, it is something that I'm working on and trying to get better at. So, therapy helps that. And so does practice, right? It's a skill to set boundaries, communicate boundaries, and reinforce boundaries. I think when you're thinking about boundaries, you need to think about it in those three ways, right? Setting them, communicating them, and reinforcing them. Reinforcing is important because people will try you. Okay, they will try you to see if your boundaries are real, are strong, and lasting. So, and it's only up to you to determine when it's time to change a boundary, right? That's something that you need to decide. Books are also helpful in reminding me about setting boundaries and enforcing them. Two books that I love are, the first one is We Should All Be Millionaires by Rachel Rodgers. I love this book for a lot of reasons. The premise of this book is that all women should strive to be millionaires because when women have lots of money, the world is a better place. They do more good with this money than men. And so she talks about the importance and gives tips on how women can become millionaires. But the two chapters that relate to what we're talking about today are the chapters entitled $1 Million Decisions and $1 Million Boundaries. I love those two chapters. So maybe you don't read the whole book, but, definitely take a peruse through those two chapters. The other book that I love that I am currently reading is called Set Boundaries, Find Peace by Nedra Glover Tawwab. I love this book because it is like an instruction manual on how to set boundaries. It gives you exercises and scripts And thus far in reading it, it has been very helpful in helping me understand and place boundaries in my life and how to adjust to people's reactions to me setting them. Very good book. It's not to say that you will start setting boundaries and you won't make mistakes at it, right? You will. It's not a perfect science, right? There are things that you need to do, that you need to be brave at doing. And sometimes you will make mistakes, but that's okay. Oprah said that a mistake is an opportunity to know better and do better. So I've definitely made some mistakes in setting boundaries. My husband can tell you that. But also in the last couple of weeks, I made a huge mistake around boundaries at work. There was a situation at work where a colleague of mine was overstepping, right? She was overstepping her role. And it was upsetting me. And I tried to tell her in a roundabout way. And I tried to tell, other people about it. And maybe they'd tell her. But ultimately, what ended up happening is that I ended up blowing up on her on a WebEx. And it was not nice, right? It was not pretty. But I had, built it up to a point where, I reached my boiling point and I just, exploded in anger, right? And so the things that I was saying to her was true, but the way in which I was saying it was not productive. And, I ultimately did myself a disservice because now she's focusing on the way I delivered the message instead of the message itself. And so my regrets in that situation is not setting the boundary and not reinforcing the boundary as often as I needed to make myself feel comfortable. I also learned that nobody is going to protect me like I'm going to protect me. You don't have to be angry in setting your boundaries. You don't have to be rude. You don't have to shout, right? Being even keeled and consistent in what you want and what you need is enough. Now, I know some of y'all are like, I know she deserved it. Well, she did, but it wasn't the right way to do it. And so it took the focus off of her and put it on me, which is not what I wanted. Setting boundaries is a way to help you deal with guilt over time. It's not easy, but it is definitely worth it. So let's talk about shaming. What I have to say about shaming other people is quite simple. It is mind your business. That's it. Mind your business. It is not wrong if someone makes a decision that is different than the one you would make. And ultimately, I think that's what shaming is all about. Everyone wants to be right, and everyone wants to be validated for the decisions they've made in their life. But you don't have to put other people down to get that validation. If you've made decisions for yourself, those are the decisions that are right for you, but you don't have to impose that on other people. The world loves conflict. They love to pit women against each other. There are so many shaming arguments that I see out there. And the classic one is working moms versus stay-at-home moms. I haven't seen it lately, but, I remember a few years ago when these arguments would bubble up on social media about who is more worthy and who is better and who works harder. And honestly, it's like they both work hard. It is both a valid choice. Do the thing that works for you. I think the one that I see now that probably replaced working moms versus stay-at-home moms is entrepreneurs versus a 9-to-5 employee. We live in a gig economy right now, and entrepreneurship is held up as the thing that is the golden ticket. It is your path to financial and literal freedom. And if you have a 9-to-5, it's looked at as if you are enslaved and will never reach financial prosperity. And neither is true. Being an entrepreneur is hard. It's tough. It's a grind where you have to chase people for your money. You have to purchase your own benefits, which are expensive. You have to work longer hours than you would at a 9 to 5. And there are parts of a 9 to 5 that are also beneficial, like actual benefits. Both have positive and negatives, but it's really up to you to figure out what will bring you the most peace, prosperity, and happiness in your own life. And another one I hear often is women who want kids versus women who don't. And honestly, that goes back to my original statement about shaming. Mind your business. Stay out of women's uteruses. Let them live. Women, especially Black women, take a lot of crap from the rest of the world. We don't need it from each other. Early in my adulthood, like college and after college and things like that, I feel like I used to be very judgmental. Judgment, I will say this about judgment and shaming and guilt. It will keep you from having a lot of fun in your life. It definitely will. But I used to be judgmental and push my opinions on other people. I can admit that. I can admit that I've grown. In grad school, they used to, quote unquote, lovingly call me a bully because I was very opinionated and I didn't sugarcoat things. I still don't, but I do it in a much better way now. I was nice to, my grad school friends, but, I was definitely looked at as someone who was opinionated and would speak her mind. And it was not like my advice was wrong. It might have been just unsolicited, and maybe a little harsh for the baby lamb straight out of undergrad. Whereas I had 2 years of living in this mean world before I went to grad school. And so in my life, I've had to learn how to be less judgmental, ask people if they wanted to hear my advice, right? Because everybody who comes to you doesn't want to hear your advice. They don't. Maybe they just want an ear to listen, right? And how to consider other perspectives in the world, how to consider that, my universe isn't the center of everybody else's universe and they can do things that suit them. And remember, obviously what's right for me isn't right for everyone. What I can clearly see now that I didn't see as clearly back then is the humanity in people. This world is very tough. It is hard to live in this world. And we have changed so much in the years that I've been walking this earth. What was acceptable 10, 20, 30 years ago, or what I should say, what was unacceptable 10, 20, 30 years ago is acceptable now. And, people are expressive in different ways. But ultimately, we have to keep in the front of our minds, whether we agree or not with a lifestyle choice, is this person is a human being making decisions the best way they know how, and that is appropriate for them. The other thing is being open to learning. I had to be open to learning about the things that I didn't know and understand. And coupled with that, being open to learning, I had to be okay with changing my opinion when I was presented with different or better information. I think this is where a lot of people get stuck because they are so firm in their belief, they plant the flag, and even if they are presented with different information that is counter to what they are thinking, they've defended that thing so hard that they feel silly going back on it, or they don't go back on it. And it keeps people really stuck. So I am okay with changing my opinion when I am presented with different or better information. So let's recap. When you are looking to prioritize yourself, think about how guilt, shame or shaming, and worthiness kind of factor into that process, right? Think about how you're going to address these things so it doesn't keep you in harmful cycles. While we're out here trying to be the best versions of ourselves, it is not always going to be easy. And easy may not even be the right word. It may not be comfortable Comfortable is probably better, right? It is going to be uncomfortable to evolve. Again, just like fear, we have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable and moving people, places, and things out of our lives that no longer serve us. And it's not to say that you're going to be uncomfortable forever, right? Practicing boundaries is a muscle, is a skill. The more you do it, the better you become at it. And the people in your life, if they love you, they will adjust to respect your boundaries. And if they don't, you guys have some decisions to make about your relationship. Making yourself a priority and setting up boundaries to protect you and your space is an act of courage. It's an act of bravery. And it's also a process that is not easy. There's going to be some bumps in the road. But from what I hear from women who have walked this path before me, it is so worth it. In a lot of ways, I feel like I'm at the beginning of this evolution of who I'm going to be in this next phase of my life. And so far, the journey has been amazing. I've learned so much, but what I know for sure is that I am worth it, and so are you. Thank you for listening, and I will see you next time.